All right, we still got a few people coming in here. Okay, I think we've got the first wave of people for now. Deb, if you wouldn't mind just keeping an eye on that, because I think you are also going to get the notifications when other people try to come in. So I think we'll probably get a few other people straggling in the next 5 minutes or so. But we've got a lot to cover this evening, so we'll go ahead and get started and we'll let others join. So welcome everyone and good evening. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lauren Rushing and I'm the Communications and Community Engagement Manager at the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. And I'll be hosting this meeting of the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Network. We also have with us tonight the Executive Director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, Deborah Kagan. Deborah will be here with us and will participate in the discussion later this evening. So before we get started, I just mentioned it, but I want to mention again that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition's website later this week if you'd like to revisit it, if you want to share it with anyone. We've got a few more people coming in here. And I'll just drop that in the link here really quickly as well. So this is where you can access the recording later on. And then I also want to mention that you may have noticed already that this is a Zoom meeting, not a Zoom webinar. So we do want this to be interactive so we can have a good discussion later. So please know that it is possible for you to be heard and to be seen. So to cut down on background noise, please keep your mic muted unless you're speaking, and feel free to turn your cameras off during the presentations. But for the discussion, if you're comfortable, we would love to see everyone's faces and hear your thoughts and questions. So this is just our second meeting of the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Network. We first met back in August when we were here, when we heard from Eatontown Mayor's Anthony Tallarico Jr. about the implementation of their Complete and Green Streets checklist. That recording is also already up on our website if you'd like to check that out, and you can find that in the same link that I just dropped in the chat. But for those of you who missed the first meeting, the network aims to bring together advocates from around the state to share case studies and best practices in bike ped advocacy. Members of the network include members of local nonprofit advocacy organizations, members of bicycle and pedestrian advocacy committees, and residents who are looking to make improvements to walking and biking in their cities and towns. So the network is open to anyone who wants to advocate for biking and walking in New Jersey. And the concept of the network stems from a discussion that was had during the 12th annual New Jersey Bike and Walk Summit earlier this year, particularly the session Advocates in Action Part 2, COVID and Beyond. And during the session, panelists came to a consensus that a network that met regularly was necessary to strengthen the role of local advocacy organizations and advisory committees, and that are working to make their streets safer and provide a way for these groups to support each other. So for these meetings, we're really providing a resource and a platform more for the regular folk who are advocating in their local towns, rather than for professionals like some of our other groups in New Jersey that I know some of you here are also involved in. So again, everyone's welcome, including those professionals who will provide a lot of good insights into our discussions. But these meetings are really meant to empower and to help local advocates to create change in their own communities and make them safer for biking and walking. So the meeting today will serve as part 2 for another session of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Summit, which was called Safe Mobility for All, Achieving Vision Zero in New Jersey. That recording can also be found on our website. And in this meeting tonight, speakers will dive further into what the implementation of a Vision Zero policy or strategy looks like at different stages. And after the presentations, we'll have a discussion that will hopefully aid you in advocating for Vision Zero in your own city or town. So we have 3 special guest speakers with us this evening. The first is Sangita Botlani, a founding member of Families for Safe Streets New Jersey, the Nikhil Badlani Foundation, and the Vision Zero New Jersey Alliance, who will provide insights on recently adopting a Vision Zero resolution in West Orange. We also have Lisa Serieyssol. Lisa is the chair of the Princeton Pedestrian and Bicycle Advocacy Committee. She will discuss Princeton's resolution to create a Vision Zero task force in 2020 and next steps for adopting an implementation plan. And then finally, we'll have Greg Francese. He's a transportation planner for the City of Hoboken, and he'll share the city's process for adopting a Vision Zero implementation plan. So thank you, Sangita, Lisa, and Greg for agreeing to speak this evening and for joining us to share your experiences and insights, which I'm sure will be very valuable for everyone on this call. So we're going to listen to presentations for the next 30 minutes, and then we'll come back for a discussion. If you have a question during the presentations, feel free to put it in the chat box. And let's see, we've got about 25 people on this evening. Do we want to go through introductions, or would everybody rather just put their name and town in the chat? What do we think? Last time we went through introductions, we had about 20 people. Do folks have feedback about that?
Name and town in the chat.
Name and town in chat. Okay. So yes, if everyone could put their name, their town, if they're associated with any committee or local organization, and we'll get to know each other through the chat then.
Lauren, I've got a 10-second blurb I'd love to share. I'm not a presenter, but Deb asked me to share something.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So while people are typing there, this is Mike Dannemiller, West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. By night, but by day, I'm Middlesex County. And Middlesex County is launching their first countywide Vision Zero action plan. There is a big outreach. There will be a splash announcement that's coming very soon. There's awesome stuff, but I really can't share more yet. But we're on it, we're doing it. And I think that will be the first countywide Vision Zero action plan. So good things are coming up.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Mike. That's exciting news. Okay, so with that, I think I will turn it over to our first speaker, and that would be Sangita Botlani. And then if each of the speakers could just introduce the next person, since I already did a formal introduction for everyone, that would be great. Sangita, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lauren. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. So I'm going to just share my screen and hold on, let me just make sure. Can everyone see my screen?
That looks great.
Okay, just wanted to make sure everyone's got it. Well, I see Mike Dannemiller is on there. So Mike, while I'm going through the presentation, if you think there is something important that I've missed, please jump in. Like Lauren mentioned, West Orange has recently passed a resolution to establish a task force, a Vision Zero task force. And I just kind of want to go through the journey, how we got there. So let me just make sure everything still looks good. I just want to make sure. Okay. So West Orange adopted the Complete Streets resolution back in 2013, but is missing the Green Streets components in the new policy. And in October of 2014, a group of residents that lived on, they live on a corridor called the Pleasant Valley Way, had concerns, and they brought that up at a meeting. So their biggest concerns were like speed lights, speed limits, traffic signals, pedestrian scale lighting, lack of sidewalks, all of the issues that many of us have seen in our township. And from there, we looked at the data that was there for the last 11 years from 2003 to 2014. And West Orange had 239 crashes, 5 fatalities, and 17 serious injuries in that time period. And from there, the idea was born to establish West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. And an ordinance was created within the general ordinance of the township. And this was adopted in May of 2015, so very soon after. The members of the West Orange Pedestrian Advisory Board basically we have representation from the Downtown West Orange Alliance, which is really the business part of the district, the Pleasant Valley Civic Association, that is the grassroots organization that I referred to that really started this conversation in the township. Council members. We also have the Thomas Edison National Museum. So we have a representation from there also on this board. And then we have Board of Education, the town engineer, planner, the chief, the new West Orange Police Department. And then we have 3 residents that are appointed by the mayor that are also on this board. And then soon after we started meeting, we met up with Partners for Health. And through Partners for Health, we were able to get a grant. And because of that grant, we were able to recruit Charles Brown and his Rutgers Studios to conduct a study in West Orange. And their project with West Orange was recognized as the outstanding student project by the American Planning Association New Jersey chapter. And through the process that they went through for the study, they set up town hall meetings. During the town hall meetings, residents were invited to these meetings, as well as the stakeholders. They identified the dangerous areas and traffic volume and crash data and intersections in the township. And some of the outcomes from that came out of the study was there was a pedestrian safety action plan from 2016 to 2020 that was recommended by Charles Brown's team, as well as 19 streets were selected for further analysis and to do a walkability audit. And a recommendation was also made for West Orange to adopt Vision Zero. So some of the initiatives that have been undertaken after the study was completed, one of them was the installation of a traffic light. And you see the picture at the bottom, the traffic light on Pleasant Valley Way. This is really an intersection that we were very concerned about because Pleasant Valley Way has a few synagogues as well as 2 schools in West Orange. So there's a high school and an elementary school over there. And when students park, they come out of this drive called, it's named Alyssa Drive, and they make a left onto Pleasant Valley Way. And this is actually, Pleasant Valley Way is a county road, and there's a lot of traffic that happens over there. And there have been a few near misses. So there was a big push to install a traffic light over there. And after pushing it forward for almost 3 years, over 3 years, we were able to get the light installed in 2018. So that was really one of the key steps that we took. There was also, like I mentioned, there were 2 schools on this corridor. The speed limit was 35 miles per hour, even though it was a school zone. And then this corridor actually runs through 4 townships. So we've got Verona, West Orange, South Orange, and Melbourne. And the speed limit varies between all of these different towns. So on where the school was, it was still 35 miles per hour. But then now it's been changed to 25 miles per hour, which should be, the speed limit around the school zone area. Also, again, flashing beacons were installed around the school area. And then school travel plans were created with the help of Easy Ride, Transportation Management Agency. We also did a walk to school days, and we ended up getting some grants to help us with, some of these initiatives. Very recently, we did a pop-up bike lane, again, in partnership with Easy Ride. And it was just a pilot program, but now we're looking to make that permanent. And so these are some of the things that we have been doing, again, looking back at all the action plan that was developed by Charles Brown and his team. So even though we've had this pedestrian safety advisory board, some of the issues that we see are that there is lack of visibility. Again, just like any other committee, that's been formed and it is under the radar, you don't have any accountability, there's no transparency. Communication, again, is very spotty, and there's no participation from residents. So, clearly these are some of the things that have to be changed if you really want to make inroads into adopting Vision Zero. So this was happening all at the West Orange at our municipality level. In the meantime, elsewhere in the state, we were working with a number of Safe Streets advocates, and focusing on achieving zero deaths statewide. This coalition was launched in 2020, and we announced it during last year's World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. And the Alliance is committed to the idea that deaths and serious injuries on our roads are fully preventable. We can eliminate all deaths and severe injuries on our roadways through an equitable, data-driven process that focuses on safe system approach and infrastructure for all. So we know that every road in New Jersey can and should be designed and maintained to ensure safety for all of our users throughout the state and across modes, built upon meaningful engagement with impacted communities. And in order for us to adopt Vision Zero at the state level, we felt that we would be able to make more inroads if we had municipalities adopt Vision Zero. And that's where the idea came for, why don't we have West Orange adopt Vision Zero already? They have a very strong pedestrian safety advisory board, and we do have an action plan, and that's where that idea was born from. So on September 19th, the mayor of West Orange actually announced that the Vision Zero task force is going to be established, and the resolution was passed. Before that, we had a discussion amongst the board members. We approached the mayor, and the mayor thought it was a no-brainer. This is something that we can easily do. But I think what really clinched the deal also was the fact that, one of the biggest concerns I think every town has when they're looking to adopt Vision Zero is like, how are we going to fund this whole initiative, right? So we kind of had heard about this bike ped local assistance plan that's offered by NJ. And so we're looking to fund Vision Zero study through that program. And I'll talk a little bit about that program in a few minutes. But that's what we are looking to utilize moving forward. So if you look at the list of the task force members on this Vision Zero is kind of quite different from what we have on currently in the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. And we kind of expanded that because making a commitment to zero traffic death means addressing all aspects of traffic safety and creating a holistic approach with layers of protection for all users. So it was imperative that representatives from other departments in the township that are directly impacted by the decisions that are going to be made by the task force, as well as they will be influencing the decision, be involved in this task force. So in addition to the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board, we are going to have representation from the mayor's office. We have now 2 members that are going to be from the Township Council, as well as we're going to have public work directors and county engineer from the Essex County, as many of our streets and county roads. All of our towns have those, and it's important that we address the safety needs of county roads in our municipalities. We are going to have a representative from the Department of Health and Welfare. Traffic deaths is a public health crisis. It's important that we have them, and they're very essential to this task force. We are also going to have a representation from senior services and senior livability initiatives. So West Orange has about 7 to 8 senior homes, as well as we know these seniors are very vulnerable. There are some that walk, to the businesses. So it's important that we have someone representing that group. We have been working as an advisor to the advisory board. So that's the capacity that we've been working in for the township, but now we're going to be part of this task force, as well as the youth advisory board from our foundation is going to be also now involved in the task force, because we know that that group is another group that are vulnerable, and it's very important for us to hear their voice and also pay attention to where they see concerns on our roads. We're going to be partnering with our TMA, which is Easy Ride. They were not on the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board, but they're going to be officially now on a task force. Fire Department and the Environmental Commission. All of these, departments are very essential and key for us to succeed. So they've been included in the task force. The one thing that I do want to mention when we were talking about the resolution and including all of these members, departments on a task force, we did see some resistance. There was a sense that we don't need to have all of these departments. We can have like the mayor's office, bring it back to these departments. But then we felt that it is important to have everybody at the same table and hear them out. So when you are looking to work with your township, make sure that you have all of these departments on your task force. And I'm sure you'll hear from the other speakers, if they face a similar challenge, but that's something that you want to keep in mind. They may be reluctant to also bring people from external organizations. And again, I think it's the expertise from these people that it is going to make a difference on how you implement this program. I talked about the local bike and ped plan assistance program. That's the program that we are looking to apply for assistance. And so this is their program really works with consultants to help developing planning documents for a variety of projects. And so some of the requirements are a cover letter and a short application that you have to fill out. You have to provide a description of the project. You have to have a resolution of support, which the West Orange Township already has. You need a contact person as well, local, groups and task force that's going to be interested in this project. And hopefully we are able to then create, the Vision Zero program through this grant. It's a free planning assistance program from NJ It focuses on primarily bike and pedestrian safety plan, but they also look at, safer streets. So that's how we're planning to go that route. So that's for West Orange Township. I also wanted to, since I am also the founding members of Families for Safe Streets New Jersey chapter and part of the Families for Safe Streets National, there is right now a zero traffic deaths campaign that's been underway. And so we have been urging our congressional legislators to co-sponsor this resolution that was introduced on July 27th by Senator Blumenthal and by Representative Sharkowski. So we urge you all to reach out to your legislators. We have about 40 legislators right now. This resolution is really about eliminating traffic deaths by 2050, and also urges Department of Transportation to take actions to that effect. So we urge you all to reach out to your legislators to co-sponsor this very important life-saving legislation. I had earlier in my slides mentioned about, we had established and announced the Vision Zero Alliance for New Jersey at the last World Day of Remembrance. We are hosting a second one this year in Military Park in Newark on November 21st at 11 a.m. So we encourage you all to come and participate and lend your voice. We are going to be, again, there are two campaigns that we're going to be pushing for. One is for the zero traffic deaths in New Jersey, and of course at the national level, as well as Bill of Rights for traffic crash victims, which is going to be very similar to the Crime Bill of Rights. So I'm going to end my presentation here. If I guess we'll just go through the presentation, and if anyone has any questions later on, I'll be here. So thank you. And I'm going to hand over now to Greg Francese to talk about the Hoboken Vision Zero program.
Thanks, Sangita. All right, everyone. My name is Greg Francese. I work for the City of Hoboken. And I'm just going to go through some of the background on how we got to Vision Zero in Hoboken, and then our process for adopting our Vision Zero action plan. And since it was recently adopted, some of our priorities for implementation over the next few years. So we didn't get there overnight. Our Complete Streets policy was adopted in 2010, and it took 9 years to kind of build the environment in Hoboken that would be supportive of Vision Zero. And it really helped using our NJ DOT municipal aid funding to insert complete streets and safe streets elements such as curb extensions, bike lanes into our annual roadway resurfacing program. So we've also used that funding to create race crosswalks, race intersections. And without that funding, we would not be able to have the built environment that we have right now in Hoboken, which you can see on the right, transforms most corners into daylit intersections with paint and plastic delineators. And really, another thing that helped us was broad community support from our city council members, our advocacy group, Bike Hoboken, and then obviously having, the mayor, previous mayor, Don Zimmer, and the current mayor, Ravi Bala, being supportive. And also crucially is Jersey City. Kudos to them. They adopted the first Vision Zero initiative in New Jersey, and they're our neighbor on two sides. And then our neighbor on the third side is New York, which has had a large and longstanding Vision Zero initiative. And also I want to mention that Hoboken is known as a walkable city. So our reputation is staked on a safe, walkable environment for everyone. And because it has such a high level of walkability, everyone is a vulnerable road user at some point in Hoboken. So it's a very important goal for us to protect everyone. And then we also have a bike share program, and we had an e-scooter share program. And these micromobility programs help build the advocacy community for these people that are considered vulnerable road users as well. So in 2019, we adopted a Vision Zero we passed our, well, I guess that's the wrong terminology. Mayor Bala signed an executive order that created the Vision Zero initiative. And our goal through the executive order is to eliminate all crash-related injuries and deaths by 2030. So we're going beyond the usual serious injuries and deaths elimination, because we think, as I mentioned before, most people in Hoboken are exposed to the types of risks that vulnerable road users experience on a regular basis. So the picture on the left is Mayor Bala signing our executive order. And I've given Lauren electronic copies of the executive order and the most recent executive order. And we also have it on our website, which is vzhoboken.com. And there's a screenshot from there as well. And just a broad overview. So in 2019, we adopted our executive order, created our task force, and the executive order has the task force membership, and then the subsequent extension also has the expanded task force. And the task force, the executive order set up a task force and gave the task force the duty to develop the action plan. So we had 4 task force memberships from 2019 to 2021. And we had some public engagement, albeit pretty limited to online engagement, because most of this was happening during the worst of the pandemic. But we were able to do some in-person engagement through a quick build. And we had a public meeting online, and then our website, as I mentioned, vzhoboken.com, was instrumental in hosting a lot of that online engagement. And we also had a pledge on there, which is another way for us to invite the community to participate in Vision Zero, and just remind them that what the behaviors that are important for a Vision Zero community, whether they're driving, walking, or biking. And that's on our website as well. And we have, I think, over 100 people that have signed it so far, with limited promotion right now. And then in 2021, this year, in July, the City Council unanimously adopted the Vision Zero action plan. So big thanks to our Hoboken City Council, and the mayor, right after that, signed an executive order that extended the task force for 2 more years, expanded membership to include additional people that would be helpful during the implementation. And then we've started some of the implementation, but our next big milestone will be our 5th task force meeting, either sometime later this year or early next year. A big component of developing our action plan was a peer city review. So we reviewed 5 cities that had Vision Zero initiatives that we considered our peers for multiple different reasons. We looked at Cambridge, Massachusetts, which has similar density to Hoboken, transit oriented. Jersey City, obviously our biggest neighbor, and already a year ahead of us on their Vision Zero initiative. Los Angeles had great online resources that we were interested in replicating, and great ways to help crash victims tell their stories, and also just general awareness for different populations. New York City obviously was a national leader and had a lot of materials and similar demographics to Hoboken as well. And then Philadelphia, which is another city that had great materials out there that we wanted to adapt for Hoboken. It was also a little bit ahead of us. Basically, we had 4 specific focuses of the peer review, and those led to 9 recommendations, which are on the next slide. And I don't want to read through them all, but we really wanted to prioritize having clear language and creating a sense of urgency, because people were dying and getting injured. So this was something that wasn't down the road. This was something that was already happening in our community, and was something that we had to address immediately. And we also wanted to, the recommendation was to highlight and prioritize countermeasures that will have the greatest immediate impact. So things that we could solve right away, that would be basically the most impactful to the community, are prioritized in our Vision Zero action plan, which I'll go through later. We also did a plan and policy review. So this was a review of our 5 most important transportation planning and policy documents to basically see if there were mentions of Vision Zero, how Vision Zero was related to these documents, and if there were things that were compatible or incompatible, or that we had to address through this process. And so we looked at our Complete Street Design Guide, which was relatively new from 2019, so only a year before our Vision Zero initiative. Our Complete Streets Ordinance, which was included in the Complete Street Design Guide and has not yet been adopted. And our Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan from 2010, which was a long time ago. And then our Master Plan from 2018, which is probably the most influential document for planning in Hoboken. And our traffic calming toolkit and request form, which was an older form that residents could use to request traffic calming or suggest some traffic calming measures on their block. So from that review, the two major highlights were that we have not placed any emphasis on the transportation modes and user groups that are the most vulnerable. The plans were silent on communities of concern and vulnerable user populations, such as children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. So another thing that was also called out was there was a trade-off. Well, the trade-off between Vision Zero and parking should be addressed. As most people know, dense urban environments like Hoboken, parking is really there's a high value on curbside parking. But is that high value more valuable than safety? And obviously it's not, but it's something that wasn't addressed in our policies and should be addressed moving forward as well. And going back to just the exposure that people in Hoboken have to injuries, pedestrians and bicyclists made up 8% of all crashes in Hoboken. We conducted a 5-year crash analysis, which is our baseline crash data. But they made up 40% of all crashes resulting in serious injury or death. So there was an incredibly disproportionate impact on these users. So our focus has to be on these users because they're most impacted. And then interestingly, but maybe not surprising, is 88% of crashes happened with bicycles and pedestrians at crosswalks and intersections. And 63% of crashes bicycle crashes occurred on a bicycle facility, which might is something that we need to look more into and see what's going on there. But that's not a great endorsement of our bicycle network. So like I said, we had some public engagement, but it was mostly online. We had a survey and a wiki map, and the wiki map was it's an interactive map that people could use to show where they had concerns. So we had the crash data and we knew where the crash hotspots were, but we wanted to compare that with where people felt unsafe or where people have experienced issues and maybe didn't report them. And so there was some overlap with the crash data, but we had 700 people basically put points on the map, and it showed really, it was kind of skewed towards where people were responding from, which ward they lived in, but it was still helpful nonetheless. And the community appreciated being able to engage that way as well. We had a virtual public meeting where we gave the plan a first look to the community, the draft plan, and we received 50 written comments on the plan that we incorporated. And then we had a quick build, a slow street quick build, that was a Vision Zero quick build in October of last year, so almost over a year ago. And we have a video of that quick build and other quick builds in Hoboken on our Vision Zero Hoboken Facebook or YouTube page. That also leads into, we have a Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, social media platforms dedicated to Vision Zero in Hoboken as a way to help spread awareness about Vision Zero and also post updates and get feedback from residents as well. So this all culminated in the actual action plan, which is uses a safe systems approach as well. And it has 105 actions grouped into 6 systems: safe streets, safe speeds, safe and smaller vehicles, safe behaviors, post-crash investigation and care, and data-driven decisions. This is all part of the safe systems approach that Sangita mentioned in her presentation as well. It's formatted with each section is based on one of these systems, and there's an action number, the title of the action item, a time frame, what agency or department or community group is responsible for getting it completed within that time frame. There's performance metrics related to that, so how to measure progress, and then primary supporters and additional supporters if there are any called out. I won't go through these next slides in detail because it might take some additional time, but this is all highlighted on our website, VZ Hoboken. We've pulled out the key action items into a user-friendly table. And we've also posted PDFs of the plans. And of course, you can reach out to me directly if there's something specific that you were interested in. But we've extended the task force through executive order for 2 more years. And we're in the process of studying lowering city speed limits citywide. So we've done a citywide speed limit study right now. And the citywide speed limit is 25. And so we're going through the data right now, and we'll be approaching different partners in the community as well to talk about the data that we've collected to come up with a desired speed limit. And then we're also trying to incorporate Vision Zero capital project funding and into our regular decision making, whether it's purchasing vehicles, making sure that they have different Vision Zero safety features, or just general street maintenance, and also prioritizing improvements at intersections that are around schools and parks. For obvious reasons, we know that there are higher volumes of people who are biking and walking around those areas, especially younger children and senior citizens as well. And then we've seen an uptick in e-micromobility, so e-bikes, e-scooters, and how does that change our street design? What are their needs? And we know that those communities are only growing, so we have to do a better job of getting them the infrastructure that they need, so they're not, for instance, riding on the sidewalk or in places where there are higher pedestrian volumes. And then we also plan to adopt our street design guide, which is important as well. That's really our guidebook for the safe streets component of the safe systems approach that is also available on our website. And then we know we're a small city. We have 60,000 people, and we know that we're a small city, especially in the whole Vision Zero national movement. And so we want to use our partnerships in these networks to expand or allow the use of speed cameras, and partner with Jersey City, for instance, one of the largest cities in the state, and also has a Vision Zero program. And then also partner with our hospitals and health community to get more complete crash data, especially high injury in high injury areas or types of crashes that result in injuries. And then our task force will be working over the next 2 years to start our community and school ambassador programs, which will help. We know that residents are very excited about Vision Zero, and they have great ideas. And they also have we have some traffic crash victims that are interested in participating in a unique way. And so we want to be able to formalize that participation and create programs and ways for them to do some peer-to-peer interaction in promoting Vision Zero, as well as collecting helpful information for the city. So here's our timeline. We are right here between 2021 and 2022. The plan was completed and adopted. And over the next 2 years, we'll be implementing some of the high priority action items, the high impact short-term action items. And then in 2023, the task force will publish a progress report, a 2-year progress report, which we hope to do every 2 years up until 2030. And then we know that once we reach our goal There's still work that we have to do, but by 2030, who knows what Vision Zero will look like and what technologies will be out there and what types of transportation we'll have to plan for, and what types of roadway users we'll have to protect. So we're making sure that the plan is flexible and can be updated regularly is really important for us. Here's the cover to our plan, just closing this out. So our plan is available at vzhoboken.com, and it was just recently adopted. And I guess when the time comes, I'll be happy to answer any questions about this. And now I'll introduce Lisa Serieyssol from Princeton. Lisa, you're up.
Thank you, Greg. So my name's Lisa Serieyssol. I'm actually, I have just stepped down from being the chair of the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee because there is so much work to be done on Vision Zero. So I look forward to describing to you what we're doing. We have here a picture of an intersection that's very central to town. It's Nassau and Washington Road. On the far side, it's actually called Van Deventer. This was an intersection that was problematic, and then the site of a fatal crash of the wife of a visiting professor. And after multiple attempts by our town to work with the NJ DOT, who is the supervisor for this road because it's actually State Route 27, we ended up with an all pedestrian phase for this intersection, and it remains today, and it continues to be very successful as a safety measure. However, the car drivers are not too happy because it does tend to back up traffic, and I'll get to that in a minute. So this is actually the picture from the scene of the crash. As you can see, it's very central to the university. The university brings people from across the country and around the world, and we have a lot of visitors as well for several other institutions in town. So we have a very high turnover of people coming from all over the country and the world. And many of them do come from other Vision Zero cities. And so they're expecting to have the same safety levels that they've come from. And that's in part the frustration that we have right now in Princeton, which is that we do have more fatalities than I think we should, frankly. But as we've talked about before, Vision Zero is to eliminate fatalities and severe injuries. And in the case of Hoboken, it's actually all injuries, that it's based on data. The community needs to be involved. And these are solutions that are especially important for equity reasons, because often the most vulnerable users of the road are also those who have no other choice to travel than by bike or on foot or using public transit, and a combination of those. So while a lot of people will think of Princeton as the university and a lot of fancy shops and restaurants, we do actually have at least 13% of our population that do not own cars, and many of them are traveling by bike because that's what they can afford. So that is another key element to what drove us to propose Vision Zero. So the resolution that created Vision Zero is actually a different methodology than what happened in Jersey City and in Hoboken, because our council, our municipal government is a different format than those both Hoboken and Jersey City. We are what's known as a weak mayor, strong council form under the Faulkner Act. So it required us to present this as a resolution to council, and council voted on it. And it was passed in February of this year to create the task force. It does not actually create Vision Zero, it creates the task force, and the task force will then propose an action plan to create a Vision Zero plan. Originally, the way the resolution was written, it was intended to be concluded by next month, but that's not happening. So it's actually been delayed to third quarter of next year. And the task force will remain in effect as long as it takes to get the approval from the mayor and council, and probably onwards. So the task force is comprised of elected officials, members of traffic safety, engineering, planning, health, DPW, 2 members of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, a representative from the school district administration, a representative from the university, from Human Services, from the Senior Resource Center, 2 additional community members, and our TMA, Greater Mercer TMA. Once the task force was approved, we established 5 committees. We are doing this work all on a volunteer basis at the moment. So it's a combination of volunteers and municipal employees that are working on one of these 5 committees. So we have crash data collection and establishing measures to assess the performance and success of the Vision Zero action plan. The policy working group, which is really creating the backbone of the overall action plan. Complete Streets Design is really taking the examples of what we're trying to achieve and putting them into real design, engineering, implementable plans. Enforcement, working with our police force to make sure that we have all of the support we need to create this. And of course, communication, both Sangita and Greg touched on it, but communication is like key, because you need to make sure that the community is involved, they are aware, they give feedback, and to educate drivers. As I said before, we have a lot of visitors, a lot of people that come through town on their way to somewhere else, that are often not as familiar with a walkable, bikeable town as we are. And frankly, they either get agitated because they're delayed at that intersection where it's an all pedestrian phase, or they shout at bicyclists because the bicyclist has taken the lane in order to be safe. And we just have a lot of work to do on that. So the Data and Metrics Committee had begun the analysis. This is from 5 years of data, 2015 to 20. And the red dots are locations where there were either serious injuries or fatalities. I have to say that for the most part, these are either county or state roads. And there's a lot that needs to be coordinated with those authorities in order to make these roads safer. The policy working group and the Complete Streets Design Committee are working as mentioned by Greg, we're looking at peer cities and their action plans. So a selection of what is here is particularly emphasizing the university towns, because we have so many students. Our university also has what's known as a Revise Your Ride program. And the Revise Your Ride is telling students, don't bring a car to campus, get yourself around by either the Tiger Transit or by bike or scooter or walk or some combination thereof. So it reduces the number of vehicles coming into town by the students, but it also means that they are out on the road in all forms and fashions, and we need to make sure that they're going to be safe. So our next steps are continued meetings of our working groups. Some meet monthly, some meet even every 2 weeks. And that's super because we've got some very enthusiastic residents that are not on the steering committee who are giving their time and contributing towards this effort. The next steering committee meeting will be in January. We've had 2 meetings thus far. One was really just to get things started, and the most recent meeting was last week. All of this will be towards preparing a draft action plan and presenting it to mayor and council in the 3rd quarter of next year. And I close with an intersection that I unfortunately know very well. This is the entrance to the school that my son attended, and really where I began my entire involvement in bike and pedestrian safety. However, you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's a cross. And as much as we would like this intersection to be safer, as much as the town has attempted to get funding to improve the safety of this intersection, and even the county, who has installed these flashing beacons, a man was killed here in the end of August, crossing the street after having it touch the button and the flashing lights were on. And we are still waiting on the results of the crash report. But it's a major blow, but all the more reason to continue with what we're doing, and it will be the perfect case study for our action plan.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa, Sangita, and Greg, for those very informative presentations. I know I learned a lot, and I was taking a lot of notes myself, and I'm sure others did as well. But as we often find, the more we learn, the more questions we have. So I'd like to spend we've got about 30 minutes, and I'd like to spend the rest of the time in an open discussion. So I will ask, let's see how many people we have on, still about 24. Yeah, so I think it's probably best if you want to speak, we'll use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen, and that'll help us keep things a little bit more organized here. So there were a few questions that were submitted prior to the meeting, and I've seen a few questions in the chat during the presentations. So we'll get to those, but I'd kind of like to just start it out by opening up and asking if anyone has any thoughts on the presentations. Was there anything that stuck out to you, or anything that you liked or want to have more clarification on? Anything that resonated with you in particular with your own experience in your own town? So we'll just go with any first thoughts or questions, and maybe we can start with kind of like focusing on questions for the speakers about the presentations. And as we move on in the conversation, we can open it up to some more general questions. So first, I see someone in the chat. So someone doesn't have the raise your hand function. That's Stephen. Okay, Stephen, are you on a computer or a phone?
I'm on a laptop. I don't know why I don't have it. I have a thumbs up.
So,
I raise hand.
okay, well, if it's just one person chiming in, then maybe you can just unmute and let us know that you have a question. But if you look under at the bottom bar, there's a little button there that says reactions. And under there, do you see raise your hand?
No, I got a clap and a thumbs up, so I don't know if it's my
Okay.
computer.
Well, maybe you can use the thumbs up then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, can I ask a
so
question now?
yeah, sure. We'll let you start off. Go for it.
Yeah, so I guess my question was for Greg. One thing that stuck out for me was one of your points was relaying a sense of urgency. And for me personally, that's something I guess I'm struggling with because it's a very urgent matter for me personally. I'm actually in my fire truck right now, 1 block from Route 1 and 9. And every day I come in here, I say a little prayer that I don't have to go out there again to, scrape a dead body off the roadway, because I've lost track of how many times I've been there. And it's frustrating on a lot of levels there and other places throughout Union County. So my question, I guess, is how do you relay the sense of urgency without just making people feel bad and sometimes I feel like I'm just annoying people, but at the same time, it's to me it's urgent. So I want to relay that so that there's action, but not also just turn people off.
Yeah, I can partially answer, but others might have more complete answers. I think one thing that is important and when there are crashes, making sure that communication about crashes is really clear, and also doesn't dehumanize any of the victims, and just makes it known that what behaviors are contributing to crashes, and also just that crashes are happening. Just raising awareness that they're happening, I think is for us is really helpful. I mean, people walk all around our city, and they experience close calls, but it seems like oftentimes we're only really reacting when there's a severe crash or some kind of injury causing crash. So one thing we're trying to get better at is just communicating the information better, whether it's through making the crash data more public, and also just highlighting behaviors that are contributing to crashes publicly through campaigns or through police enforcement or whatever tools we have available. I'm not sure if that was a great answer, but
No, that it makes sense. Yeah. I guess, you see statistics, and it's easy, and you see the stuff on the side of the roads, and it keeps happening, so I almost, people won't really act on things without emotion. So I've been having this idea in my head that somehow I'm the person who needs to transfer that emotion behind the statistics. But at the same time, I feel bad, but I don't necessarily want everyone else to feel bad. But I want you to feel bad enough to do something. So that's, I just more of a thought than a question. I understand what you're saying. You need to relay it more, but yeah, that was it.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I think that's something that a lot of us can relate to and have struggled with. Sangita, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, Stephen, from what I understand, you're asking is how do you relay that to the administration that this is an issue that we need to tackle now, right? So my advice would be, since you are the first responder, you probably also have the connection with the families or the victims. I would bring them to the table because they want to take an action. And I think it's the stories of the people. I did not mention earlier, but I lost my son in a car crash, and that's how I am so involved in this. And I think that's, if you can find families who want to make a difference, just reach out to them and have them talk to the township, the administration of the township. That's the best way to get any action. It's going to be very hard for them to say no to them. That's what I can say. I mean, that's exactly what's happened in my town in West Orange.
Thank you for sharing that, Sangita. I think that Paul was next.
Thank you. Everyone, that was a fantastic presentation. All panelists, thank you so much. And I have a question, but I'll lead with, I hope we can all rally around a safe passing campaign this spring, and we can all be really consistent with it. So Deborah, I'm hoping New Jersey Bike Walk Coalition can put something out that we can all piggyback on. I put in the chat a document, a link to a document that gets updated, speaking of stats, roadway fatalities, and it's updated daily. And unfortunately, we're 15.6% greater than last year. So that's really sad to see. And I was on a call earlier today with the Union County Transportation Advisory Committee, and I found it interesting when the issue of complete streets policy, a countywide complete streets policy came up, and they kind of deflected to the municipalities like, oh, well, we work with the municipalities and a lot of them have the policy. So almost like we don't need the policy. And as everyone was, discussing, it's the county roads that are really the fast roads and the roads we need to do something about. So it's one of those pointing at each other. And I'll leave it with a question. I heard a lot about metrics. Does anyone use any metrics for measuring the number of pedestrians just out there walking or people out riding their bikes to see if putting in these bike lanes and these other kinds of things actually increases ridership? Thank you very much. I'll listen.
Thank you, Paul. The last part of your question, you're just referring to like bicycle and pedestrian count data.
Yes.
I can address that. We had a bicycle mobility plan that was conducted over 2 years, 2015 to 2017, and there were counts that were done with that particular plan. Again, we had another event where we did a pop-up bike lane for about 12 days, but we did run the count data with the help of DVRPC for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks before and 2 weeks after. So overall about 6 weeks. And then on that same corridor that we're looking to establish a permanent bike lane, there were other studies of the pedestrian and bicycle volumes. But I have to say, we would love to have a more reliable, more continuous kind of counting methodology. I have seen it being used in other towns, but not anywhere around here. It was in outside of Alexandria, outside of DC.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Kirk.
Yeah, we do counts occasionally, not as much as we'd like. Right now we're trying to prioritize doing them before we do a project, and then after the project's been implemented. We also have automatic counters that we're about to install on our busiest bikeway that will measure continuously bicycle and pedestrian traffic. And then through our partnership with our e-scooter program, our pilot e-scooter program, we got really detailed e-scooter ridership data, and it lined up well with where you would expect people to ride on the streets that have the most comfortable riding conditions for people that are riding e-scooters or biking. But we're certainly not where we'd like to be with collecting data. So it's important to recognize that.
Okay.
Did anyone else want to weigh in on that question? Okay. I think Emanuela was next up. Everybody's moving around on my screen, so I'm having a little trouble here, but I think there you go, Emanuela.
Thanks, Lauren. My question's for Greg. Hi, Greg. I'm with Bike Hoboken. And I'm a cyclist and a driver. And I just have a question about enforcement. Is there some place where, like in New York City, there's the reported app. So when there's a car parked in the bike lane or a car parked, actually the other day I was driving in Hoboken and I think I almost had a crash because I couldn't see because a car was parked in one of those yellow painted lines, like right up against the curb. And it was absolutely terrifying. And I took a picture of the, later I got out and as a pedestrian, I went by and I took a picture of the car and the license plate, but I didn't have anywhere to send that. Is there like an app where we can send information about something dangerous on the roadway? And as a cyclist up and down Patterson, is there any plan to put a bike lane on Patterson?
Well, for the first question, we don't have anything yet. Unfortunately, it's something we want to have, whether it's a number that goes to parking utility or police that can send someone to ticket or remove a vehicle that's parked in an unsafe way. We have 2 code enforcement officers that are their responsibility is to keep bike lanes clear, but they can't be everywhere all the time. And so we also want to try and use 311, but that's not checked all the time. So I think we're trying to figure out a good way to do it. If there are areas that you frequently encounter this behavior, you can send the information to me and we can look at doing something about it, whether it's having better enforcement, like parking utility enforcement in that area or delineators or something. I know that's not the best option, but that's kind of what we have right now. And then Patterson.
I think if we could just get our officers to come by and ask cars to move along, just move along. Just don't park where it's illegal to park. There is space.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have witnessed them doing that, and the drivers usually just move up out of sight, or they'll come around and circle the block. One thing I mentioned during my presentation is the curbside space in Hoboken is very sacred, and we're trying to find better ways to use it, whether it's adding more loading zones or changing regulations. But that's difficult if you can't enforce things. So it's and we have more delivery trucks and cars than ever before, obviously. So yeah, I understand your frustration there, and we're trying to work on it. And then Patterson, right now, Patterson is we're doing a pilot project there. And after a year, we'll be able to reevaluate whether the current design works, and if we can add bicycle infrastructure to future iteration. It's obviously something we want to do since it's a major corridor there, but currently there's nothing planned there, unfortunately.
It has to be a when, not an if on Patterson. I've almost been killed as a cyclist on Patterson.
Right.
But thank you.
Thank you.
put Rebecca here, the disembodied voice. I put a link in the chat to Bike Lane Uprising, which is an app that I think could be deployed just about any place. I have not used it, but it seems to be getting traction.
Yeah, I've seen that myself as well. I think it's based out of Chicago, if I'm right.
I think it's being used all over the country.
Is it
So
now?
wherever you can leverage a platform, it's going to be better.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that would be an interesting thing to check out. Does anyone here know of any other cities or towns in New Jersey that might be implementing any sort of reporting mechanism that Emanuela asks about? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Going back to Paul's question quickly, I did want to point out that Sonia mentioned in the chat that the NJTPA has implemented a regional pedestrian count program recently. And I believe they were most recently in the process of identifying the locations where they would be taking the counts. I'm not sure the status of the program at this moment. If anyone here knows, feel free to chime in. But that's data that should be available probably, I want to say the spring of next year is what I heard. Anybody want to mention anything about that? Okay.
I was just gonna add that if you wanted to find out, like maybe if you have a bad intersection near you, it might be worth reaching out to NJTPA. I think they did already pick their locations, but if you can show there's a need for that and a want, maybe they could expand the program. I think they were open to that.
Yep. So the program manager, Amy Jefferson, her information is in the chat as well if you'd want to reach out to her. And then John Boyle put in a link for bike and ped counts with the DVRPC if you want to check those out. Okay, and with that, I think we'll move on to Polly. I think you were next.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for those presentations. They're so valuable. Greg and Lisa and Sangita. In Asbury Park, we have a long way to go, but we're moving forward little by little, bringing awareness. And I think what everybody seems to be saying is that we have a two-pronged job to do. One is to influence our city government and also to educate the public. And so that's what we're trying to do on both ends, and literally every day talking about almost getting hit on my bike, almost people driving right through bollards and paying no attention to stop signs, all of the above. And it's funny, I just wanted to throw this out there that almost every conversation I have, and I had one a couple hours ago walking around in the city, checking out some new paving and striping, a guy came running out of his house and said, "This is ridiculous. We don't need these bike lanes. This is not a city. We don't need this." And they were just beginning to be striped out in front of his house. And he was very angry about it and about not having enough room for drivers to, and it was, I said, what's interesting is that what you're saying, he was talking about drivers, these crazy drivers, they end up on my lawn, I'm on a curb, on a corner, these drivers, they're speeding. We shouldn't even have alcohol on the boardwalk. Like, you're not going to change that, dude. But I said, the thing that you're indicating is that the problem is drivers. It's over and over and over again. The problem is drivers. So how do we address that with the built infrastructure, the built environment? We all know that. So how do we get the education out there? How do we influence our city leaders to take this seriously? 40,000 fatalities a year in the United States with traffic violence. So it's an ongoing thing. We're all saying the same thing. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your presentations, because I can use them here in Asbury Park. I also would like to share with you guys something cool that happened here a month or so ago. A woman from Monmouth University reached out to me because she had seen the Asbury Park, or the apcompletestreets.org website, which is really rough. I mean, it's just me posting articles and talking about things. And but if you check it out, apcompletestreets.org, there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of research, a lot of information. She liked it, and she's a digital design professor at Monmouth University and has stepped up with her students with a class, a master's degree class in digital design, to address Vision Zero in New Jersey and the 4-foot passing law. So they're designing, I want to share this document with you guys. I didn't put it in the chat yet, or I'll email it to you all. It's a document that's they have a timeline. They have to be finished by December or so. And I've been the point person to be helping them along through this thing with language and stuff. But it's going to be a digital design presentation by 5 groups of students, some individuals and some groups of students, who are going to have useful material that we can use in New Jersey for Vision Zero and for the 4-foot passing law that all of us can use. So I'm so excited about that. She came out of nowhere, and then we ended up meeting up. She lives in Asbury. She came into my kitchen. I think I might have told some of you about this privately, but it's really growing. And I sat in on the kids' presentations the other day. I shouldn't say kids, they're young adults, students, master's students. And so it'll be really cool when it comes to pass. I'm going to send you the packet that she sent me today, that the professor sent me today, of how far the kids have come. They're using drone footage. They're using all kinds of digital design tools. So maybe that'll help move everybody along a little bit. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I just want to say I appreciate all of your presentations because we really have a lot of work to do here in Asbury Park. It's very fragmented. And oh, also I did put in the chat the Asbury Park bicycling and walking master plan, which you can see a crash map in Asbury. Obviously, most of the crashes take place on the thoroughfares, the State Road 71 and Memorial, which is partly county and partly local. Really hot, lots of crashes, and in the poorest part of the city, which is the southwest quadrant of the city. So equity is a big issue. People walking and biking because they don't have cars. So we're all sharing the same problems, but slightly differently. So anyway, thanks everybody. I'll send that document from Monmouth University.
Yeah, thank you so much, Polly. That's super exciting to hear.
That's really cool.
I know we'd love to get a lot of those materials up on the website for the Vision Zero Alliance as well. So we'll be excited to see, what the final product is and how we can use it. I believe Deb was next for our questions. Deb, did you have your hand raised or?
I did actually. So first of all, again, thank you very much. Really, this is great presentations and really appreciate your time in preparing them. Lisa and Greg and Sangeeta, thank you so much for your presentations. I had two questions. One is kind of for more for Lisa and Sangeeta for that presentation, which is both of you talked about pedestrian safety advisory boards or committees and then task force separate. So I wanted to understand a little bit the relationship between the two, how that works out, because in my thinking, it was sort of part of what a pedestrian safety advisory committee would do. So I sort of want to understand if it still has a task or how that relationship works. And the other question I had was about the action plan. So a lot of the towns, particularly the smaller towns, have a bandwidth issue. I think when we bring up trying to do a new plan or add on Vision Zero to an existing small administration and staff. So I sort of wanted to hear people's ideas about sort of how to overcome that barrier. And they say, I can't deal with all this. Is the need more to get funding, like a local aid program to do the action plan, or how do you sort of see addressing that issue?
I can start with your first question about advisory committees. In fact, the Vision Zero effort in Princeton really did initiate with our committee. And it took several years of conversations with individual council members, the mayor. We've changed mayors, but it took several rounds of initial conversations that were part of what we as a committee had determined was our goal, which was to adopt it or to enact a Vision Zero program. Our committee has 2 representatives on the steering committee, but frankly, our whole committee is getting updated by monthly meetings about what is happening with the various Vision Zero working groups that Tinika's also on this call. She's the other person that represents PBAC on the steering committee. And she and I update the committee, the pedestrian bike advisory committee on what happens at Vision Zero. And if anybody from that Ped Bike committee wants to be part of any subcommittee working group, they're welcome to join in. We actually believe longer term that the Ped Bike committee will be subsumed into something along the lines of a Vision Zero commission or something along that line, so that this whole equation becomes not just focused on pedestrians and bicyclists, and that it's about safety and mass transit and everything else.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Deb, did that answer all of your question, or I think you had a second question as well?
Yeah, well, the second question was about the need for funding to create an action plan, or how to address the smaller municipalities that don't have a lot of bandwidth in administration and staff.
I'll
On that, I would say maybe Greg has more experience, because as I said, Princeton is doing it completely based on a group of volunteers at the moment. We will probably bring along some consulting support or communication support eventually in the coming year. But for the time being, we're using just what we have, because we do already have a master plan. We have a master plan reexamination that's starting next year with consultants that are already hired for that. So we can try to bring Vision Zero into all of those focus group discussions. We have a bike mobility plan. We have a sidewalk plan. So in essence, we have a lot of pieces that really need to be blended together.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Lisa, using your master planning process. So Sonia sent around our RFP for our Vision Zero action plan, which included more than just creating the plan. It included the website and videos and some other different things that we thought would be helpful. It costs us about $100,000, which isn't actually that much, thinking when you think about the size of municipal budgets. So it is something that communities can plan for as well.
Thank you, Greg.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Deborah, I mean, just to answer the question about, what's the difference between the task force and the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board that was already established, and why did we have? So in our case, I mean, we could have easily included some of the other departments into the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. I mean, that's another way to do it. However, I just felt that it would be better that if we kept that separate, because now the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board meets every month. And there may be a time that we may not meet monthly as far as the task force is concerned. They may not be. So we kind of wanted to keep this as two distinct groups. So again, we are so early in this whole process. We've just passed the resolution. We haven't really had any meetings or anything. We're waiting to first just submit our application for the grant, because we're really looking to get consultants to come in and create an action plan, develop an action plan from us. I think the issue is going to be, how do we implement it once the action plan is developed? That's when we kind of run into, all the issues that you mentioned, because we don't have the bandwidth in our administration for some of these, and then we may not have all the experts there either. So I think you kind of have to wait and see. We're not there in West Orange right now, so we're gonna have to wait. But there are clearly some low-hanging fruit action items that you can undertake, so still to be seen.
Thanks, Sangita. So we are at time right now. I want to ask one other question, which I think will be a quick question, but Jennifer Duckworth, if she's still here, I saw that she had put a question in the chat, and that is that all the speakers tonight mentioned action plans. Is there a template or a tool to help towns develop these action plans, or could NJBWC or another group help with a template? So maybe someone could answer the first part of the question. Is there a template available?
So what we did, there isn't one, unfortunately. We did some research. We're part of NACTO, and I sent an email to the NACTO list to get as many RFPs as I could, to write our RFP. And we also did a peer review, and which was really helpful because it reviewed all the existing plans in those peer cities, which we're happy to share as well, if it's applicable to your specific community. But there is no template, and I guess I think it's important for us to not have a template, right? Because there's so many different needs in different communities. What Hoboken's plan looks like isn't necessarily going to work for everyone. Even Jersey City, which has a lot of similarities to Hoboken, and vice versa. It's not. We wouldn't just reuse their plan or their format at the end of the day.
Greg, is it possible to share the peer review and put that up on the website with this video?
Yeah, we can do that for sure. If it's not already on our VZ Hoboken page, I can put it up there.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think it's an interesting thought about using resources like NACTO. Do you know what it entails to become a member city with NACTO? Is that something that any city or town can do? Or I'm sure they have limited resources as well.
Well, I mean, NACTO, it costs money to be a NACTO member. I mean, I think we pay one of the cheapest rates because we're a small city.
Mm-hmm.
But the resources you get from NACTO are just, we think it's worth it. And Lisa, I know you were working with Princeton about researching it, and I mean, a lot of NACTO stuff, especially during the past year, has become publicly available at nacto.org. And a lot of I don't know if NJ specifically uses NACTO materials, but there's a lot of overlap between stuff that's out there for free and what's in NACTO as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then Sangita also mentioned in her presentation the local assistance program. So that's also something to think about, Jennifer, that if you do get to the point of having a resolution and a task force and looking at implementing a plan, then that might be something you'd want to think about applying for as well. And that would give you access to experts that could not give you a template necessarily, but help in developing the plan. So, Sonia, do you have something you want to say before we close out?
I just wanted to add that it depends on where you are, but in certain scenarios, like the city of Trenton is doing their Vision Zero action plan through the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission's work plan. So if you are looking for Vision Zero at the county level, or think you can convince one of the counties on the board of your metropolitan planning organization to apply, you can use their yearly work plan to also create a Vision Zero action plan. So I realize that doesn't work for every municipality because not all of them actually sit on the board of the MPO, but you can ask your county to submit it as a work plan. And if you have any questions about that, just email me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Great.
Lauren, before we close out, you want to just take a couple minutes and ask people for suggestions for other topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's good practice to end these meetings, just spending a few extra minutes talking about ideas for future sessions. We do have a form on our website, which I will include in a follow-up email where you can submit ideas at any time as they come to you. But yeah, does anyone here have any thoughts or want to submit an idea during our discussion now?
Sure. Just how micro-mobility, other choices like e-scooters and bikes and wheels and things like that are going to influence what we do and affect us.
Thank you, Paul. I think I saw Sonia's hand.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from a town that has changed a speed limit on a state road or a county road, or both, actually. I think both, but changing a speed limit through your town if the town does not have jurisdiction of that road.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think there was someone else who submitted in our form. I don't know if it was also you, but someone had also submitted an idea that was along the same lines of, how do we overcome these challenges of coordinating with the state and the county, since a lot of those roads are often our higher risk roads. So
I
thank
think that could be even extended how towns are dealing with county and state issues, even just beyond speed. I mean,
Oh,
that came
yeah.
up obviously in Princeton last year. There's, it's come up in Montclair. There's a lot of frustration. So I think that's a good topic to include speed, but even so, how do you implement safer streets and policy across the municipality?
Locally on county roads, yeah.
Yeah, complete streets projects in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any thoughts? We
Announcements?
We did. I just want to mention one other topic idea that was submitted to us, which was on somebody wanted to see a topic that would focus on community engagement events and efforts that other committees and local advocacy groups have implemented that have been successful. So I know in our session or our meeting last time, we had a presentation by Mayor Anthony Tallarico, and he talked about how a big part of implementing the Complete Streets checklist was that they had these different community events to reach a broad spectrum of benefits, organizations that represent different benefits throughout the community. And he mentioned, for example, community walks. I know Asbury Park does a lot along those lines, including tabling events and participation in the St. Patty's Day parade every year. So I think it could be an interesting idea to do a session for local like committees that are in their infancy and looking at what kinds of events and community engagement efforts could be successful for them. Does anyone have any thoughts or feedback on that topic? Yay or nay?
I was wanting to hear more about like the wiki map and how you got people to fill that out. That I thought that sounded like a great tool.
Yeah,
Greg
add
mentioned
that as
that
well.
earlier.
Yeah.
I like
just-
both of the last two ideas, the wiki map and the community engagement, because I think that's where you get so much more information and support for what you're trying to do.
Going back to Stephen's question about how do you make it urgent and that community engagement, I think the how we can better utilize community engagement to rally our base to influence our local town government, because my experience is they won't do anything until they have a very visible, loud support, until they're forced to.
Paul, you're exactly right. Making noise makes a big difference. I do a lot of social media stuff, but ultimately, if you show up, if you go from business to business with paper, with printed materials, whatever you can do, if you can afford to get stuff printed, handouts, documents, stuff that where you show your face and you're there as a real person, indicating that, we're really here. Marching in the parade was fun and cool. Bike rides are fun and cool. They're good. And they touch a certain number of people, but a lot of people don't have social media at all. And the people who are affected the most in our community don't have social media. They are the community that's underserved and the most dense and has the least amount of infrastructure for walking and biking. So getting those people, attracting them, going to the local barber shop, showing up at the local cafe, the stuff that's going on over at that part of town. It's hard. It's a lot of footwork, but it's the old fashioned way of reaching people that is really important, and making noise in that way.
So I have a question. Do people like this format of like a good chunk of presentation, or would you like less presentation, more conversation? Like if we did a session on community engagement successes, would it be better to just have everybody bring up examples from their work, or do you like this sort of presentation part first? I'm curious to get a sense from everybody.
The presentation seems like a good anchor, but we could talk all night, right?
My thoughts exactly. Yeah, this one was a little bit presentation heavy. I think the last one with Anthony, he just presented for 20, 25 minutes or so, and we had a little bit more chat time. So maybe we could do it different every week, depending on the subject. Some subjects we have more people who we know can speak with expertise on that subject. And for some of us, it's just, for some other subjects, it may just be brainstorming together. So I think it probably depends.
One last idea to add, and that is maybe adding some time to exploring cameras, traffic cameras, and their use. Somehow that seems like a
Proven
For-
safety
for a
measure,
meeting.
proven safety measure discussion.
I think I sent the email to everyone. I don't know if I might have missed if it was brought up, but I know Greg talked about lowering speed limits in Hoboken, and it might be maybe a possible stronger starting point to just make it more enforced, the 25 mile an hour, or make people feel like they have to go 25 miles an hour. I mean, I would like it to go down to 20 most places too, but what I noticed in the meeting with that I sent in the email was that when they do the data analysis on the places that they want to focus on, in Garwood, for example, as I'm using, the place they want to focus on, you have to be like 30 to 35 miles an hour and over before they even focus on it. So maybe if we can somehow lower that data point to anything over 25, the whole screen will light up red. And then they would have more to try and force.
Stephen, just a footnote, if I may. We had a case in Montclair from 1 year to the next. We had almost an exact doubling of fines with almost no change in crashes.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. So obviously, I know enforcement isn't the answer, but it also might, if we're pointing out that everyone's going over 25, then maybe that gives us a better chance to get more traffic calming infrastructure, which is what is really needed.
Yeah, looking at speed limits versus real speed traveled across the network. Yeah, that's a great thought. Thank you, Stephen. Sangita, did you want to say something? And then I think we'll need to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to again just talk about the World Day of Remembrance that we have on November 21st. I want to make sure that people, you obviously are you're passionate about this. And if you know people who have been affected by traffic crashes, and you also, we encourage you to come out, support us. We are still lining up our speakers for that day. We're going to definitely have some people who are families and victims, that have experienced the loss. So if you want to get your voice heard, then come and support us over there. We are also planning to do like a visual with, very similar to the COVID memorial. So we'll have about over 500 flags over there, representing the lives we've lost on New Jersey roadways. So I just wanted to again remind everyone, if you know of families that have been affected, please let them know that we will be gathering at Military Park in Newark at 11 a.m. to remember our loved ones.
Thank you. Thanks, Sangita. I was going to mention that again as well as my announcement, but Deb, if there's anything else we should mention, please remind me, because I don't think that there are any other events coming up this month that I remember.
No, there's no events, but I just want to answer quickly Paul's question earlier about the safe passing law. There is a strategy group forming to talk about building a campaign. And we also have the safe passing for New Jersey group of people that have been working on this. So, and we're also going to engage the Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center out of Voorhees to work on this. So we're at a stage where we're trying to get some conversation going about what state agencies may take this on, and sort of what space that advocates will need to do for filling in an education and awareness campaign, and also to work with our MPOs. So there is some movement going on in that. Anybody else who wants to be more involved in that, let us know. Sonia and John are on this group and some others as well. So I just wanted to let you know that is in progress. We haven't dropped the ball on that yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This was really, really appreciate the time and effort from everybody who presented. Really was, I learn everything every time we do one of these. It was really great. And having these resources recorded so that I know that people have used the last one. So I do think it's really valuable to have this place for all our resources. So if there are other documents, like we mentioned with Greg, the peer review or the RFP, we can put them on the resource site so people can see them. And appreciate everybody hanging in here late and participating with all your ideas and your experience. And we're very excited about the last two sessions, this one and the last session for this network. So we're going to keep this going and see where it goes. And we're interested to hear your input on how we can develop this network further. So it's not just these presentations and conversations, and to really make this something that we're all actively developing together, as we are at the very beginning of trying to think what this network could be for all of us. So thanks again. And
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Super.
I'll just for final thoughts, again, it was recorded. I'll put that up on our YouTube channel and on our website later this week, and I will send out a follow-up email so you guys have all the information that you need just right there. So yeah, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you at the next session, probably sometime in January.
Thank you,
All
Deb
right.
and Lauren.
Everybody have a good evening. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.